Hello everyone and welcome to the lecture on tuples. So sometimes some people call them tuples, some people call them tuples. I'll be referring them as tuples throughout the rest of the course. So in Python these tuples are very similar to lists except they are immutable. So that means they can't be changed. So right now I have open the Jupyter Notebook, and in this lecture we're going to be going over constructing tuples, some basic tuple methods, their immutability will drive that point home, and then a quick side talk on when to use tuples. Alright, so this will probably be a pretty brief lecture since a lot of the syntax will feel pretty familiar. So how do you construct a tuple? So if you remember, you can construct a list using square brackets. So here I have a list of 1, 2, 3. With a tuple, it's almost the same except you're going to use parentheses and commas. And so now T is a tuple there. So just like a string or a list, you can use the len, the length function, to check its length. So that will give you how many elements are in that tuple. And then tuples, just like a list, can also mix object types. So I can put in a string along with an integer into my tuple, and there's no problems there. Let's go ahead and show that tuple. All right. So again, a tuple is a sequence, just like a list, and we can index it just as we've seen before. So T of 0, that brings out that string, and if I want to access that 2, it's in the 1 index. And it also supports slicing. So let's say I wanted to grab the last one, I could use a -1. So indexing, all that syntax is the same as it was for strings and lists. Now, there's a few basic tuple methods that I want to introduce to you guys. So remember, for a method, you take your variable name, put a dot or a decimal point, and then you write the method name, and if it takes any arguments, you usually have parentheses there. So in this case, index, you can enter a value that you know is in the tuple, and it's going to return the index. So if we look at my current tuple, that T, it has a 1 string and a 2 integer there. So let's say I wanted to figure out what the index of that item was. I could put it in. So to show you again, let's say I wanted to know the index of 2 there. It responds with 1 as the index. So that makes sense. Another method we can use is the dot count. So that will count the number of times the value appears. So you put in the value that or the element that you know is in the tuple, and it tells you how many times it appears in that tuple. So for instance, if I make a tuple right now, that's 1, 1, 2, 3. So I know 1 appears twice. So if I say t.count, and I want to count how many times 1 shows up, it responds with 2. Okay, great. So something that we're really going to stress with tuples, and the thing that really makes tuples unique, is that they're immutable. So that means you cannot change the items inside the tuple. You can't reassign the items inside the tuple. So to show you what I mean, remember we have our list L, which is 2, 2, 3. I'm going to change it to 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we have a list that's equal to 1, 2, 3. Don't worry about this change to 2, 2, 3. That occurred because I paused the video and was playing around with it. Anyways. So right now we have a list that's equal to 1, 2, 3, and let's go ahead and make our tuple T equal to a tuple that's 1, 2, 3. So if you remember, the list, since it's mutable, it will support object or item assignments. So I can say L of 0 is now equal to, let's say, a string called S. And now there's no problems there, it's been reassigned. Now, if you try to do the same thing with a tuple, it's not going to work. So here I have my tuple, which is 1, 2, 3, and if I were to try to reassign the 0 index there, which is a 1, let's say I try to make that equal to something else, like that string S, it's going to say a tuple object does not support item assignment. So this is really important to know. Tuples cannot be mutated, so they're immutable. So you might be wondering, so why would I bother using tuples when they have fewer available methods than a list? So if we check out this list and then check out all the methods on it, There's append, count, extend, pop, remove, sort, and we go over those in the advanced list lectures. But if I look at my tuple and press tab, there's actually only two methods, count and index. So there's fewer supported methods in the tuple. So you might be wondering, well, why would I use that instead of using a list? And the key to that is their immutability. So if you're in your program, you're passing around an object and need to make sure it doesn't get changed. So you got to make sure the sequence doesn't get changed. The tuple can be your solution for that. So an example of that might be if you have a tuple representing the dates of a calendar, which you know are not going to change throughout your code, you might use a tuple in that sort of context. So definitely keep tuples in mind when you want something to be immutable. Okay, so that's it for this quick lecture. Let's just jump back to the Jupyter Notebook so we can review everything. We went over how to construct a tuple, so you just do that with parentheses and commas, just like a list, except instead of square brackets you're using parentheses. You can check the length with the len function. You can also mix object types in a tuple. You can use indexing just like we did for strings and lists. There's only two tuple methods, index and count. And we went over their immutability, so you can't support item assignment in a tuple. Alright, so that's actually it for tuples. And we'll see you at the next lecture. Thanks, guys.